Good evening. This is Weekdays with Wendy, and I'm reading to you from the Love Your Neighbor No Exceptions Daily Flip Calendar. And today's reading is a scripture from the Gospel of Luke, the words of Christ. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who mistreat you. Now, at first glance, this sounds like a nice religious sentiment that really isn't meant to be taken literally. But of course, that's exactly what Christ wants us to do. But it's hard. Loving our enemies isn't fun, but it's a choice we make. If we want to live lives of peace, we have to make peace with our enemies. You don't make peace with your friends. If you're not at odds with someone, you already have peace with them. No, you make peace with those that you're against, you're opposed to, you are on opposite sides of an argument. Those are the people you make peace with. Why would you love your enemies? Well, you wouldn't if you enjoy the fight. If you're someone, though, who is tired of all the hate-filled rhetoric, the meanness, the spite, if you are someone seeking peace, it's up to you to make peace. It's a choice. Do you want a life of argument, or do you want a way of peace? Father Greg Boyle is a priest in California who began Homeboy Industries. Now, we've talked about him before on Sunday mornings. He started the business as a way to provide jobs and a new life for gang members who wanted to leave that kind of life behind. Now, of course, it meant that they had to make a choice. They wanted to either stay in a gang and continue fighting against their rivals, their enemies, or did they want to leave and find a new life, one with peace? That's what would happen in Homeboy Ministries. You would have gang members who had been on opposite sides of the street, opposite gangs, rivals, enemies, who had been fighting each other previously, now working side by side. He has countless stories. One of the stories is of Miguel, a young man who had come to Homeboy Ministries. He had had a terrible childhood. His family had abused him physically and emotionally until they ultimately just abandoned him. He was an orphan, left aside, left to fend on his own. Well, one New Year's Day, he called Father Boyle, and he called him G. Happy New Year's Day, G. Have a great New Year. Well, Father Greg asked him, well, I know you don't have family. What did you do on Christmas Day? And Miguel was really excited, and he said, I invited over 6 homeboys. And as he named them, Father Greg realized that these were people who were in rival gangs to Miguel. These were his bitter enemies back on the street. And these were the young men he had invited over to celebrate Christmas. Father Greg knew that these 6 men that Miguel had invited over all had the same situation of no family. And so these 7 men spent Christmas Day together. So Father Greg asked Miguel, well, what did you cook? And Miguel said, I made a turkey. And he was obviously extremely proud of that. And Father Greg said, that is wonderful. How did you do it? And he said, I did a ghetto style. I put some salt and pepper and, squeezed some limes on it, and we baked it. And Father Greg said, well, what else did you cook? And Miguel said, well, nothing, just the turkey. And then he went on to say that all 7 of them sat in front of the oven watching it cook until it finally got done. Those 7 men had been enemies, and they could have chosen to stay in that kind of life to maintain that hate, that animosity, the violence. But they all chose to make peace and love their enemies. And that day, these 7 men who had no family of their own celebrated Christmas together as family. If you want a way of peace, you have to make peace. And so, hear what Jesus tells us. But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. Have a great night.